The air hung thick with the scent of roasted peacock tongues, mingled with the sharp tang of spilled wine and something darker, sweat, perhaps, or fear. In the dim glow of oil lamps flickering against marble walls, shadows dance like specters across the banquet hall. You hear the low murmurs first, then the gasps, as bodies shift uneasily on silk cushions. A figure slumps at the head of the table, his belly straining against his purple toga, eyes glazed from endless indulgence. He gestures lazily, and the room stirs. Servants drag in a line of trembling forms, young women cloaked in white, their faces pale as the moon. The emperor's laugh echoes, a guttural rumble that chills the spine. One by one, they are pushed forward into the haze of smoke and desire. But as the night deepens, a whisper spreads beyond these walls. This isn't just revelry, this is ruin. What you're about to hear involves accounts of sexual coercion and brutal excess. These events are drawn from ancient chronicles, but they disturb the soul. If you need to step away, I understand. For those staying, we focus on the machine behind the madness, not the spectacle itself. This wasn't a fleeting night of debauchery. This was a system of power devouring itself from within. In the chaotic year of 69 AD, Rome teetered on the edge of collapse after Nero's suicide, a vacuum that sucked in 4 emperors like a whirlpool. Galba, the stern old general, fell first to Otho's ambition. Otho, the polished schemer, lasted mere months before Vitellius's legions crushed him. And Vitellius, he wasn't a conqueror forged in battle's fire. He was a product of Rome's rotting core, a man whose appetites became the empire's undoing. The stakes were immense, an empire spanning from Britain to Syria, its legions fractured, its treasury bled dry. What began as a soldier's rebellion swelled into a feast of destruction, where one man's gluttony poisoned the well for millions. Yet echoes linger today in how unchecked power twists human frailty into something monstrous. To understand the beast, trace its roots. Rome in the mid-first century was a colossus cracking under its own weight. Nero's reign had ended in flames, his golden house a symbol of excess that left the city scarred. The Praetorian Guard, once loyal protectors, now kingmakers for hire. Provinces churned with unrest, Gaul simmered, Judea rebelled, and the German frontiers bristled with barbarian threats. Into this maelstrom stepped Aulus Vitellius, born in 15 AD to a family of sycophants and survivors. His father, Lucius, had clawed his way up under Tiberius, Claudius, and Nero, a master of flattery who once kissed Caligula's feet and called him a god. The Vitelli weren't ancient nobility. They were opportunists, weaving through the imperial court like vines choking a tree. Vitellius himself grew amid the shadows of power. As a boy, he lingered in the villas of Capri, where Tiberius retreated for his infamous pleasures. Whispers from the time paint a picture of a youth entangled in the emperor's web, surrounded by dancers, actors, and those who traded flesh for favor. He earned the nickname Spintria, a term for those involved in elaborate sexual games, tokens exchanged like currency in the night. Was it coercion or ambition? Accounts vary, but it marked him a stain that followed like a shadow. By his teens, he raced chariots in the Circus Maximus, gambling fortunes on blue team horses, his laughter ringing over the roar of the crowd. Marriage came early, to Petronia, a wealthy heiress whose inheritance he squandered, then to Galleria Fundana, who bore him children but little loyalty. These weren't idle vices. They forged the man who would seize the throne. Trauma? Perhaps the court's cutthroat games hardened him, teaching that survival meant indulgence before the blade fell. Or maybe it was the empire's bureaucracy, a machine of spies and informants that rewarded excess as a distraction from plots. Vitellius climbed, proconsul in Africa, where he governed honestly by some accounts, then curator of public works under Nero. But the turning point came in late 68 AD. Galba, the new emperor, needed loyal commanders for the German legions, restless troops far from Rome's gaze. He appointed Vitellius, seeing him as harmless, a glutton unlikely to rebel. That spring, as snow melted along the Rhine, the legions proclaimed him emperor. Galba was dead, Otho rising, but Vitellius's forces marched south. It wasn't ideology driving them, it was promise of plunder. And then the Battle of Bedriacum happened. Otho's army shattered, the man himself slain by his own hand. Vitellius, lounging in camp, accepted the crown without lifting a sword. The empire held its breath. Would this be reform or ruin? Vitellius entered Rome that summer, his army a swarm of 60,000 men, their discipline frayed by victory, the streets, still stained from Otho's fall, filled with cheers or fear masked as joy. He paraded not as a conqueror, but a reveler, distributing coin and promises. But beneath the surface, the machine activated. Spies rooted out rivals. Executions silenced debtors. Vitellius installed himself in the Palatine, Nero's ghost haunting the halls. His first acts, banquets that blurred day into night. Picture the setup. A hall vast as a forum, tables groaning under silver platters, the air thick with incense to mask the sweat of excess. Servants, slaves from distant lands, scurried with amphorae of Falernian wine, while musicians plucked lyres in the corners. Vitellius reclined at the center, his frame already swelling from indulgence, surrounded by a court of flatterers. One key figure emerges here, Asiaticus, his freedman and former lover, a man who whispered poisons into the emperor's ear. Their bond, forged in youth's immoral tangles, now steered the state. Asiaticus handled the lists, names of senators, knights, anyone with wealth or grudge. The primary victim? Let's call her Flavia, a noblewoman from an old patrician line, her family tied to the Republic's faded glory. In her mid-20s, she had lived quietly in a villa on the Aventine, tending gardens and scrolls, widowed young from a marriage arranged for alliance. Before the horror, she walked Rome's forums, debating philosophy with scholars, her veil framing a face of quiet resolve. She cared for her aging mother, hosted modest gatherings where poetry flowed freer than wine. Flavia represented what Rome once was, dignity amid decay. The confrontation built slowly. Whispers reached her. The emperor demanded tribute, not just gold, but presence at his feasts. Refusal meant exile or worse. One evening, guards arrived at her door, their armor clanking like chains. "The emperor invites," they said, but their eyes spoke command. She resisted at first, pleading family duties, but the machine ground on. Asiaticus's network had marked her, beautiful, untouched by scandal, a symbol to break. They led her to the Palatine under cover of dusk. The hall assaulted her senses, the roar of laughter, the clatter of plates, the haze of smoke from braziers. Vitellius spotted her immediately, his gaze heavy as lead. He offered a choice, join the revelry or see her estate seized, her kin exiled. She refused, voice steady, invoking the gods and Rome's laws. But the system didn't bend. Guards pushed her forward, the crowd parting like waves. What followed was implied in the shadows. The feast continued, but Flavia emerged changed, her spirit cracked though not broken. She slipped away at dawn, vowing silence, but word spread through servants' whispers. This wasn't about one woman. This was about control, the emperor's appetites as a weapon to humiliate the elite, ensuring loyalty through shame. Historians note parallels today in how tyrants use personal violation to dismantle opposition. But that wasn't the worst part. As summer waned, the excesses escalated, spreading like fire through dry tinder. Shift to the perpetrator's lens. Vitellius, bloated and besieged, viewed Rome as his larder. From his throne, he orchestrated the machine. Tax collectors squeezed provinces, legions looted villas. His gluttony wasn't mere hunger, it was policy. Banquets served as court, where alliances formed over exotic dishes. One infamous platter, the shield of Minerva, mixed pike livers, pheasant brains, flamingo tongues, ingredients shipped from Parthia and Spain at ruinous cost. He ate 4 times daily, inducing vomit with peacock feathers to continue. The treasury hemorrhaged 900 million sesterces on food alone, famine stalking the markets while he feasted. From this vantage, the orgies weren't chaos, but calculation. Accounts from the period describe nights where noble guests were compelled to participate, their daughters and wives summoned as entertainment. Vitellius, echoing Nero's debauchery, mingled feasting with flesh. A witness, a grizzled centurion who had marched from Germany, recalled the haze, bodies entwined amid spilled goblets, the emperor's laughter drowning pleas. This centurion, loyal at first, saw the shift. What began as victory celebrations twisted into coercion. He escaped north, carrying tales that fueled rebellion. The escalation hit different regions. In the provinces, legions mimicked their leader, ravaging farms and towns. In Rome, the Palatine became a fortress of indulgence. Numbers tell the tale in human terms. Whole families displaced, estates emptied to fund the feasts. One breather amid the storm, an ironic detail. Vitellius, amid his gorging, paused to watch gladiators, finding beauty in their disciplined fury, a stark contrast to his own sloth. Historians debate the exact scale of the sexual excesses, but estimates from contemporary chronicles suggest hundreds of noble women were drawn into the web, their virtue traded for favor. Some say 400, a figure whispered in shadowed forums, though primary sources vary, perhaps inflated by Flavian propaganda to justify the coup. What mattered was the spread, from elite salons to the streets, where common folk whispered of the emperor's gluttonous orgies, blending food and fornication into one devouring force. She had 3 days left. Flavia didn't know it yet. The climax crested that autumn. Vitellius's paranoia peaked as news arrived. Vespasian, the general in Judea, had turned his legions west. The machine cracked, spies failed, allies deserted. In the Palatine, feasts grew frantic. One night, the emperor summoned a grand assembly, demanding oaths of loyalty sealed in excess. The hall filled, senators in togas, matrons in stolae, youths wide-eyed. Vitellius, senses dulled by wine, gestured wildly. The air grew heavy, smells of roasted meats clashing with perfumed skin, sounds of harps fracturing under moans. Time slowed, guards barred doors. The demand came, participate or perish. Flavia, dragged back, stood defiant. As the revelry ignited, she slipped a dagger from her sleeve, hidden for this moment. The blade flashed, not at Vitellius, but at a guard, sparking chaos. Shouts erupted, bodies collided. In the melee, the emperor retreated, his bulk slowing him. This wasn't peak horror, it was the breaking point. The system, built on fear, shattered when one victim resisted. What followed implied the fall. Flames licked the edges, torches overturned in the struggle. Guards turned. Whispers of Vespasian's approach fueling mutiny. Vitellius fled, but the crack widened. Legions defected. The praetorians wavered. In the aftermath, Rome burned anew. Vitellius barricaded himself, offering abdication for his life and a fortune, 100 million sesterces. Too late. Vespasian's forces stormed the city that December, streets running with blood. Estimates of the dead vary. Some say 50,000 in the final battles, soldiers and civilians alike. Vitellius was dragged from hiding, pelted with filth. mocked as glutton and incendiary. His end came on the Gemonian Stairs, body hacked and hurled into the Tiber. Asiaticus followed, executed swiftly. Flavia, she survived, fading into obscurity, her resistance a quiet legend. Power shifted to Vespasian, who rebuilt with austerity, the Colosseum rising from Nero's ruins. Long term, the year scarred Rome. Trust in emperors eroded, frontiers weakened. One ironic detail: the documents meant to erase Vitellius's memory preserved him. His excesses a cautionary tale in histories. Modern discovery brings it tangible. In the 20th century, excavations near the Rhine unearthed coins stamped with Vitellius's face, plump cheeks etched in silver, a reminder of fleeting power. Archaeologists in 2025 uncovered a villa in Aricia, its mosaics depicting banquets, fragments of platters echoing his feasts. Who found them? A team led by Dr. Elena Rossi, an Italian scholar sifting through layers of earth, piecing together the machine's remnants. Why it matters? This teaches how appetites, unchecked, corrode societies. A clear parallel today in leaders who prioritize personal indulgence over public good, their feasts draining resources while people starve. The universal truth: power isn't seized, it's fed, and overfeeding invites collapse. Echo the opening, the hall now silent, lamps guttered out. What changed? An empire survived, scarred but standing. These women, meant to disappear into the night, didn't. They endure in chronicles, in unearthed artifacts, in whispered stories, and now they're here with you, because you chose to listen. If this tale stirred something, share in the comments. What echoes do you see in today's world? Remember, history isn't dead. It's the mirror we hold to ourselves.